Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer. And today, of course, as you can see, I'm still continuing my Disney movie marathon, at least for a tad little longer, I guess you could say. But, yeah, before I move on to anything else on this channel, I suppose, because there's still quite a few things I'd like to, discuss and whatnot. Okay, whatever, moving on to the point of this video is that when it comes to creating a franchise, especially nowadays, it just seems likely that, yeah, there's plenty of expanded universes with spin-offs, side stories, prequels, sequels, TV shows, or something in that nature, of course, and it just comes off like, or maybe different takes on some characters, or maybe, and of course, the horror genre is not, it could be, is not escaping from this either, because there's one horror franchise that I tended to have a franchise from the very beginning. And yeah, the Star Trek trilogy counts for this, I guess you can say, along with movies like, let's say, Harry Potter as well. Comic books are especially known for this, like Batman and Batman Returns have its own separate continuity from Batman Forever and Batman Robin, apparently anyway. And then there's the Batman trilogy, which has its own continuity as well. So, yeah, I guess that would count as expanded universe, I suppose. But then there'll be like other movies that attempted at doing it but failed miserably for being cocky or whatever. But yeah, there's been other movies that really attempted to do this kind of a thing as well. So yeah, it happens. So there's like a lot of people are doing this nowadays. So of course, even you can say this to an extent, the video games as well. They try to have their own lore and whatnot, of course. And I have to mention even books. Yep, even books would do the exact same thing, of course. So it just comes off like everybody and their grandma wants to have an expanded universe. I personally don't seem to mind this, maybe to an extent, I guess. But others will just believe like, okay, enough is enough. Seems like a huge saturation of this kind of a thing. But I mean, I guess it depends how it's done, I suppose, folks. It depends on what they were trying to do, I suppose. But I mean, you could run the risk of making a bad entry, and they could just sabotage your entire thing. What you're trying to do, and then just, of course, if the studio would allow you to continue this said series of movies, games, or books, most likely the next installment, depending on how badly screw it up, I guess. Most likely, the next installment would most likely be like a reboot or some sort of time travel device to pretty much retcon the bad entry of the series. Kind of like what happened with Mass Effect Andromeda, because the story was so bad in a lot of ways, and also what Days of Future Past did, because the previous entries were less than spectacular. And then like with the Japanese version of Godzilla 2000 did, because the 1998 remake of Godzilla was really bad. So that's the kind of thing I'm referring to, folks. I guess that kind of thing would bound to happen if you keep going, I guess. I'm going, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going. I mean, okay, if anything, it probably is just people being incompetent, of course. Yeah, quality control will be an issue if you're not careful, I guess you can say. So, yeah, better watch it, I suppose. Of course, there's the one game, yeah, this one here, folks, they really butchered it. I mean, really, really butchered the game. But okay, you think that's like a one-time thing. But no, they don't listen. They don't learn. Because they did the exact same thing with Mass Effect 3. Talk about having a bad entry in the franchise, which can actually ruin it. The said franchise, you could actually have a franchise where that's actually pretty good. Because of EA rushed them into production due to the fact that these franchises were already popular at this point. So yeah, just crank it out and just make it and just release it. You could really mess up, which they did, which happens when you're in a rush. You realize that, right? And then trying to use other things to, retcon that mistake that just happened. So, yeah, that's something you do have to keep in mind, you know. Probably one of the few people who thinks this, but I actually quite enjoy the Hobbit trilogy. So yeah, the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy. This series is one of those few series I can say that never had a bad entry, like at all. But then we have the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, which both are garbage. This is probably a response to the Spider-Man 3, because Spider-Man 3 was poorly received, so they decided, hey, let's reboot everything. I'm trying to fix that problem. Even though Sam Raimi actually didn't mind making a Spider-Man 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 or whatever, despite the lukewarm response of Spider-Man 3. So, I mean, Spider-Man 3 was kind of okay, I guess, but we would never know what the other stories would have been if they actually allowed him to, make it. Saw a possibility where all three actors who played Spider-Man may actually appear in the current Marvel Expanded Universe. Yeah, that's not confusing at all. Oh, okay. So we see how that goes, I suppose. With the multi-dimensional kind of a thing going on here, I guess. So they're trying to tie up some stuff or whatever. I don't know. I guess we can see where that goes, I suppose. Right, that was a lot to take in. But okay, the point that I'm trying to get at. Yeah, Frozen 3. Yeah, I know this is something I've already discussed in the past videos, but yeah, I'm gonna say, if you are actually gonna do it, don't ruin it. For the love of all things holy, don't ruin it. I mean, of course, you could go on the fact that the first two films were really popular, and they just want to make another one because of that. Sure, it's not like the second one was planned or anything. The same thing with this one; it's not even planned, like at all. So now they want to turn something that was never intended to be an expanded universe into an expanded universe. Yeah, that's gonna be difficult right there. And I mean, it's not been confirmed, but it keeps coming up that there's a slight possibility that it may occur. Because even got the people behind these two films talking. Again, yes, I've already discussed that too as well in the previous videos, of course. But again, like I said, this is a subject matter that keeps coming up. I mean, yes, of course, a lot of the fans of these two films took it as a confirmation, and they're basically running with it. Does seem rather odd considering the fact that the people who made these films never said that they wouldn't do it and never said that they would. It's kind of like arms up in the air, so to speak, I guess. So yeah, but again, like I said, the fans of these films they pretty much took that as evidence. But even though the people behind these movies were kind of wishy-washy about it. I mean, yes, the first two films premiered and made both films made a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. Both films became the highest grossing CGI animated film of all time in regard for Disney anyway. So I guess there's a potential chance they might do it, at least for the money wise, I guess, because of the money. Well, I'm not entirely against that, but don't let that be the only motivation to do it. It was because it would seem extremely hollow if that's the only reason you would do it. I mean, yes, I understand this is a business. You have to make money. You have to keep things the public interest, whatever. But it did take them quite some time to actually make the second movie. About a good 6 years. Yeah, that sounds about right. But to make these movies, to actually make these films, they actually said it takes about 4 years, which I kind of have to disagree with. That does seem unlikely. But anyway, point being, it does takes them quite some time to make any of these movies. The more the delay, the longer it takes to make. And the longer they take to make said movie, the bigger the chance that certain individuals may, lose interest to actually watch a third film if they actually do it. So, yeah, it's kind of like an open door, so to speak. If you catch my drift, leaving an open door, sort of. While the second movie, Frozen 2, did tie things up fairly well, so I wouldn't know how they would actually go on a certain point. Maybe, because of a certain scene, maybe expand on a certain scene, maybe because of certain dialogue that was said, maybe something was left out on purpose. I'm just going from there. I don't know. I don't know how this would work really. There was nothing to that would leave a like a little sequel hook. Is what I'm saying here. There was nothing that was left intentionally behind to be picked up later. I don't know. It's just I'm kind of iffy on this. And you could always argue that the second part wasn't even planned anyway, but they found a way to make a sequel out of it. But I guess you can say, in other words, the same can be said with Mass Effect Andromeda. That wasn't planned at all, but they made it anyway. They found a way to do it, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if there's a will, there's a way, I suppose. You can find some sort of sequel hook to it. And Tango was originally supposed to have a sequel, but that never came into production. So instead, we got the animated series. So close enough, I guess. But there's also rumors around that they may actually do a live-action version of this movie. I mean, are you serious? Give me a break here. Why does every single princess movie needs a live-action counterpart? That's confusing me. I don't get that at all. Why doesn't that need to exist? Yeah, it's weird. It's just odd. But okay. Anyway, as I was saying, making this kind of a thing occur, what can they possibly go on? Of course. I mean, it's quite obvious, yes, there's quite a few parts of Frozen 1, especially the first one, that were inspired by the Norwegian, I should say, culture and whatnot. And, I mean, they never say it in the movie, but you can actually tell in the first film. Norwegian culture, you can be seen everywhere within the clothing, the way the people would act, the way that some buildings will look, the way that Arendelle looks, so on and so forth. There's plenty of stuff that just can actually be seen in there, of course. And of course, including the castle itself. There's many traditional things like items and whatnot that Disney took inspiration for Princess Anna and Queen Elsa. Especially in regards of their clothing, of course, and whatnot. So it's definitely something they took from inspiration from real life. So could they make this work again for a third film? I don't know. I don't know how they would make this work. Because typically when you make a sequel, yes, you have to make things bigger, louder, more adventure, that's a word. And you get the point. Louder, scarier, bigger, and so on and so forth. More grander. You get the point here. But also, not only that, traditionally speaking, you want to make a sequel that would expand upon what was already done. Maybe a certain thing, maybe a certain idea, maybe a certain theme, or maybe a certain character's backstory, or maybe a side character. You can use the sequel or prequel or side story as an attempt to expand upon on any of these ideas. And yes, you should. You should do that. I mean, not every movie does this, which of course is unfortunate. This sounds like the most obvious thing you can think of. Expand upon on what already has been done, while simultaneously keeping the source material, the story, seem interesting. Like I said, I know that seems like the most bluntly obvious thing ever, but you should be surprised how many people would actually miss this. Build upon on what was already made to make it seem like there's a reason for this sequel to exist, or prequel, or side story, or spin-off, or whatever. Expand upon on what was already done. Give this story a reason to exist, is what I'm saying. Give it a reason to exist. But I know, before anyone tells me, that sounds like the most obvious thing you can think of. But unfortunately, a lot of people do miss this. But the Frozen second one, the sequel, thankfully does build upon what was done. Frozen 2 thankfully does build upon what was done already. It expands more on the Elsa's and Anna's family, their backstory. It has something to do with the granddad and the Enchanted Forest. It's an adventure where it takes them away from Arendelle I'll really make sure that it will explain, okay, why exactly does Elsa has these powers and Anna doesn't. So yeah, thankfully, these Frozen 2 does just that. It expands on what already done, and then while making the story itself seem bigger, wider, and more crazier, I guess. You're supposed to do that anyway, make the story itself more grander, while adding to what was already done. Point being is that I don't know what can they possibly do for a third installment and make it work. I guess I don't know. I don't know how this can possibly go on from here. Of course, like at all. It just seems like you don't want to come off like you're desperate or anything. You don't want to come off like you want to just make a sequel just for the sake of it. Because that would just come off like you have no ideas at all. You just run out, you're trying to make just do it just to do it. Some Disney film makers did make a comment on a potential third Frozen film. And, I mean, yes, like I was saying earlier, Frozen 2 did, in fact, have tied together the first two films rather well. And like I was saying earlier, while at the same time, there's still a lot of fans that are still wondering, or not, there could be a third film that could be produced by Disney. And yes, of course, some of the filmmakers made a comment about, having the co-director or whatever. And with one of the directors saying that, there's nothing that ever closes the door completely. And yeah, he actually made a statement that maybe it could. They did discuss this before in various interviews and whatnot. But they're in a sense beating around the bush. They're not exactly. I mean, yeah, okay. Do not say no. They're not saying that they won't. But at the same time, they're not confirming that they would either. So, yeah. Okay, what was that one word I used before? Oh, yeah. Being evasive about it. Just like when they were discussing the possibility of Elsa getting a girlfriend, they're doing the same thing here. Yes, no, maybe, could, would, should, perhaps. Yes, no, a definite maybe. Could, would, should, maybe. Yeah, it's just going around, they're beating around the bush, so to speak. That's really, really irritating to me, folks. I mean, yes, okay, sure, the movie franchise, Star Wars Expanded Universe, they have the books and whatnot. So, yeah, they have plenty of material that they've been building for more than a decade. For more than 2 decades. For more than 30 years. They still have and they're still adding to its lore. Even to the very day, they're still making a lot of material for these films. And unfortunately, however, Frozen 1 and 2 doesn't exactly have that luxury at all. They sadly don't, really. Yeah, sure, they made like this mini comic book series and mini books or whatever surrounding these characters. But I don't believe that will be enough material to make a full-length film, so even that is a bit stretching it. Like, you could do like a hypothetical scenario like this book did, do a what-if situation, and that should did the same thing with, Beauty and the Beast, the original animated movie, a what-if scenario. And there's also a version of Alice Wonderland where there's like a bunch of zombies or something. Kind of like a horror movie-ish kind of a thing. But then you could do that, I guess. It doesn't have to be canon to the previous two films, but just make it a what-if kind of a thing. And I know Star Wars did that. Yeah, of course, yes, even Star Wars had done that quite a few times with hypothetical scenarios with Vader, like as if he still lived, or of the explosion of the Death Star from the original trilogy, it delayed or something. So, like, a certain aspect of the element of the story is slightly tweaked up and took a different turn. Like, what if Princess Leia was trained by, that little green guy, Yoda, along with her brother Luke at the same time? Or what if Vader didn't die and he actually switched sides and become the hero and helped the rebels to fight against the Empire? I mean, yes, there's a truck ton of ways you can actually do this. But you do run a certain risk, though. Okay, okay, if just because they did it, does that mean they should do it? Because there's a risk here of making it boring, because you're basically just retreading the same story again, and just tweaking up like maybe one element of it, and that's about it. The overall story might be the same depending on what you change, and yeah, you don't want to come off like you just retreading what was already done, and you're just making a slight difference to what was done. So you might run the risk like, okay, here we go again. It's the same movie all over again, just with a different angle. But yeah, that's something you have to think about. How can you make it interesting enough and fresh enough so that people can keep the interest with these characters and whatnot? People are saying that Elsa is now immortal, so which means she can actually live. If this is actually true, of course. Since Frozen 2 explores more of an origin story, and Honest 2, of course. And, in regards to the granddad or whatever, and if this is true, there's plenty of material that alone. I mean, just imagine the time, the space, and time she can go through. She can go throughout the ages. She basically can live on forever, for the rest of eternity, until the end of time. And you already know time itself is infinite, so this alone, there's already plenty of material here in which you can use. That's enough right there. You can build a story around that. It's actually kind of depressing when you think about it. This would mean she will see her sister Anna get older and older until pass away, along with Kristoff and of course and everyone else she loves so dearly. That's a depressing thought. You can live on and on and on throughout the entire ages as the people you cared for just wither away and just become dust, so to speak. It's just got a whole lot depressing when you think about it. Yeah, then Elsa herself has to find a way to cope with that, I guess. So since it was discovered that she's supposed to be the fifth spirit or something in the second film or whatever. So yeah, there you go. I mean, okay, that's really vague, I guess, but you can mold a story around that, I guess. Okay, sure, maybe Elsa could somehow use her ability and maybe make the others immortal as well in some way. By using her DNA in some sort of laboratory or something, I don't know. But there's still gonna be a possible conflict with there too, because what if the others don't agree in doing so? Maybe like I don't know, something in regards to the fact that having a much shorter life makes you appreciate the small moments a lot more. Like the little moments in life makes those more appreciative of the fact that it doesn't last. The fact it doesn't last can make you more appreciative of said moments. And I don't know. I don't know how that would work in the story, maybe, but you do have to have some sort of conflict in the story. Otherwise, it'd be pretty boring if nothing happens. Is that the whole theme of things changes do occur, which was discussed in the second film. You could actually continue that in the third movie. Have some themes and whatnot, return so like the entire thing can feel like it's all connected or whatever. But maybe there could be kind of like a civil war kind of a thing in regards of I don't know, pro immortality, and the other side could be like anti immortality, whatnot. I don't know how you can make sense out of that, but you can make it work somehow. I don't know. And I guess a good example of what I'm trying to say, like I was saying earlier, in the original Battlefront 2, where you get an alternate ending if you play through the clones of the song campaign mode, the Conquest to be more exact. You get a different ending. Of course, it's not, canon obviously, but it's plain as though, okay, what if the Republic did not become, an empire? What would happen from this point forward? It's left to the imagination, of course, what exact details, sure, but it's an interesting thought, like an alternative timeline in these films. But if you do the same thing with Frozen, like I was saying earlier, folks, maybe we could have also face off a really powerful enemy that's really, really more strong than originally expected or something. Create some suspense or whatever. But the thing is that I'm still worried, even if they come up with a totally different storyline, even then it's still worrisome because those are third part curse. The third part curse, why is it so bad? Well, it seems to be like common factors. I mean, a lot. Well, I guess, for example, the third Blade film is just awful because troubled production, and then you have movies like Superman 3, where it's like way too lighthearted than it should be, or even or maybe something in the lines of Matrix 3, which was just extremely pretentious, and it was never meant to be made into a series anyway. Or a conflict with the studio by having too many ideas in one movie, like what happened with Spider-Man 3, or have a different director taking charge of what happened with X-Men: The Last Stand, or again a completely different tone. It was just cashing in on a previous installment like this one, which was never supposed to have been made. And I guess the same can be said for The Godfather 3. So yeah, there's various things that could occur in the production that could really ruin it, of course. And when it comes to trilogies, almost always the third one being the worst one of the series. The burden of having to wrap up the story and the fact that many third parts are produced solely just to make more money, just to milk the franchise. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can possibly go wrong and had go wrong when it comes to the third part of films. Maybe the creative differences that could also plague the production as well, which can happen and which had happened. So I mean, again, this was a discussion with the people involved in the film, and yes, of course, they're being extremely dodgy with it. Maybe yes, no, perhaps, or whatever. It could also be the fact maybe they're just tired of hearing it, I guess, since this movie became one of the most popular films of all time. So it could be that. Maybe they're just getting tired of just hearing it over and over again, and over again. Just people keep asking them, hey, when's part 3 going to come? When's part 3 going to come? When's part 3 going to come? And whatnot. So I guess with the people involved in it, to some extent, you can understand their frustration, but this is a business, so of course, some people are going to keep asking that. I don't know if that's entirely true right there. That's me guessing there, an educated guess. They could just, a long time ago, just tell them to piss off. We're not going to make a third part. But then again, if they said it like that, they could have some negative feedback, and people not be interested in the product anymore. So it could be what I said. Maybe they're just sick and tired of hearing it, but they're just trying to be polite about it. Maybe. While at the same time, maybe not, eliminating the idea of making another one. But I don't know. This could go a bunch of ways, I guess. I suppose. And again. If they wait too long, maybe that's why they're being really evasive about it. But the thing is that if they take too long to produce the film, they may potentially lose interest with this kind of a movie. So yeah, it's kind of like no matter how you slice and dice this, you might be screwed, I guess. So that can be a factor right there. Of course, there's gonna be a lot of stress when it comes to this kind of a thing. It is the film industry after all. Of course, it's gonna be stressful. And you had to play into the factor that how can this movie live up to the first two films? And of course you do have to market a certain way so that the movie can make a lot of money. Of course, at the end of the day, I understand that you have to make money and you have to be careful with your product and make sure you won't taint it. Of course, you have to keep that in mind, obviously. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that kind of get in the way and will get in the way, of course. So it can be really, really tricky. And I guess, I mean, yeah, some people, those individuals out there who can handle stress better than others, true. But that's the thing, folks. Maybe it kind of goes into the whole idea that I believe maybe they should have planned this ahead of time, which they clearly didn't. But I mean, the second film, like I said earlier, was not planned, but they found a way to make a third film. They will explain, okay, why does Elsa have powers but not Anna? See, they could use that as what I would say a few moments ago, a sequel hook. There you go. That's for the second movie. Let's use sequel hook right there. What does one sister have powers and not the other? So they basically use that as a frame for the story, I guess you can say. But what are they going to do for the third one? I mean, what? What exactly? I don't know. I mean, yes, I do some suggestions here and there, sure, but that's about it. Just, suggestions. But of course, it always comes in the question that should they really? Should they really do it? Man, a part of me wants to say no, even though I did enjoy the first two films. I did enjoy the first two films, of course, a lot. Quite obviously, I did speak about it quite often. But then at the same time, I am curious if they were actually would. So yeah, I kind of split down the middle on that. So yeah, I mean, I guess, I mean, in some ways, I'm not exactly answering the question either. Really, should they really? I guess I'm not answering it really either. But I guess it's a curious thought, I suppose. I don't know. Some people say no. Some people will say yes. But most of the fan base desperately want to see another one. And that's the thing. Just because there's a slight possibility of it doesn't mean that they're going to do it. Hate to break it to you. And like I said, like I said right earlier as well, the second film pretty much wrapped up the entire story of what the second and fourth one were doing. So, the story for itself and the story for the first film, that what was going on, they pretty much wrapped it up perfectly at the end. But yeah, I'm not quite too sure they actually should. I'm really iffy on that. And for the second movie, it was really tricky because the second movie was not based upon any books, poems, or comics or whatever. So the second movie had an entirely original story. Whereas with the first movie, it was loosely based on a old book called The Snow Queen. Even though they took a lot of liberties, obviously, but still, it was kind of based on something. Whereas the second one, not really. It was not based on anything at all. So in that regard, what are they going to do in the third movie if they actually do it? So I don't know, folks. It's just too much guessing around, I guess. Way, way too much guessing it, in other words. So I wouldn't know, really. So this seems to be like a recent thing, concerning the fact that there was some talk. The people behind this movie, the filmmakers behind this Frozen films, made some comments that could possibly do it. Maybe. But, so this was the entire thing, folks. I just want to make an entire video around that, just to have some sort of discussion. And I do appreciate anybody actually watching my long video. It's what? Yeah, it's a little over 30 minutes. Yeah, yikes. Yeah, and it's just hearing me blabbing on and on and on and on. Yada yada. Just keep going on and on with this whole Frozen thing. So I do appreciate anybody watching this. So whoever you are, whoever watched this, I appreciate you watching this individual who watched this. Thank you very much. Anyway, of course, as always, thanks for watching and take care. Till next time, see ya. Oh yeah.